Can't hardly avoid hearing about the bees being in trouble nowadays. They need a little bit of our help. I guess there's a little irony in that. Bees got along fine for 100 million years just relating to plants. It's only in the last 5 million that man has got involved with raiding them, and in the last 150 years and intensively trying to grow them under our demands. Although it does go back to Egypt and Israeli times at the time of, well, before the Common Era. I picked up Ross's book because it was about natural beekeeping, trying to do it without all the chemicals that has gotten involved in the process. I don't know why we have to industrialize natural processes. It's worked some on the crops, but it hasn't been so good for the bees, and that's part of the reason they're in a crisis right now. My goal, in learning from Mr. Conrad and others, is to raise these bees as naturally as possible, just provide things that help feed them, shelter them, and if they do well, they have a little extra honey to share for me. And that's just gravy. I enjoy them. They're fun. I can sit out here and watch them. I have to schedule my work that I can only have rewards to go watch the bees when I get something done. How do you start a new colony? Well, if you can find a swarm and you can know how to harvest it, that's one way. Maybe you want to be a little more experienced for that. Here's how I did it last year, and I did 2 more new hives this year just to bring in some Italian genetics and a carnelian. But this is what's called a package. This package will have either 3 or 4 pounds of worker bees. A pound of bees is about 3,500. So in this little box will be from 10,000 to 14,000 bees. This little top is a sugar water or a syrup can. Has little holes in the bottom. They fill that up, put in the bees, and then this is the queen box. She is in this box all alone. It has a screen front that the bees can tend her, feed her, take care of her. There's an opening at the bottom, but that has a cork plug in it during shipping. That little queen is suspended in amongst the workers, and this can is in there to feed them, and it's shipped upright like that so the sugar can come to those little holes at the bottom. It doesn't run out because those holes are very small, and just atmospheric pressure and the negative force in there holds that water from all running out. But you bring them home, you have your hives all made up, hive bodies, the frames. You tap it down a little bit to drop the bees to the bottom, lift that can out, snag the queen, put the can back in or put a cover back in. Now this hive is already going, of course. I'm going to calm them just a little bit, 3 or 4 puffs of smoke. You can over smoke them and do more harm than good. It doesn't make them excitable, but it's not so good for them. I'm going to pull off the top box and lid here. And with your equipment set up there, you pull out one of the frames. The queen cage had the cork in it. You pull that cork out, replace it with half of a marshmallow, a miniature marshmallow. Put it in the cage, in the hive there. Wire it to the edge. You want it held at the top of the frames there because by physics, heat rises. These bees are going to be creating heat. It'll be easier to keep that queen warm if she's high in the hive. It'll take a day or 2 or 3, but the bees will eat that marshmallow out of the bottom there to free the queen. They are used to her because they've shipped in from their origin, usually California or the South. So everybody's all accustomed to each other, consider themselves one of the gang. Now you've got those 3 or 4 pounds of bees left in here. There's different ways to do this. What works best for me is to set that queen up. You can calm them down a little bit by spraying them with that same syrup, sugar, 50% sugar, 50% water. spray the cage. They load up a little bit on the sugar, makes them less aggressive. And another thing, they are calm because at this time they do not have a home or brood to protect. They are in limbo. When people see swarms out in the wild, they get unnecessarily afraid, but those swarms are not aggressive. They're out looking for a home, but again, nothing to protect. They are not liable to be stinging. That's why you see pictures of people used to bees that will put the queen on their, somewhere on them. It's probably wise to put a little cotton in their nose and their ears, but then the bees will form a whole beard on them and sometimes cover the whole beekeeper. It makes for a nice picture. It probably instills some fear in people, but not necessarily so. They're never more gentle than when they're swarming. Here's our 3 to 4 pounds of bees. Imagine them in here. You shake as many out of there as you can get loose, and that'll be normally 80% of them. I had one box of Italians this year that just wanted to chain and they didn't want to fall out of there, and it didn't go as well. The carnelians were a little more cooperative. What you see here is just a little simple chicken waterer, poultry waterer, that has the 50% sugar water solution in it. You heat the water up to close to boiling to make the sugar dissolve, then make sure you let it cool down before you put it in there. You don't want to burn up your bees. I put a few little glass marbles in there so the bees don't fall in and drown. And until they've drawn out comb and have some stores, they'll use this sugar solution. But these girls are already good harvesters. You can see they're coming in kind of low. That means they've got a belly full of nectar. They come in a little higher, and they've got their little pollen baskets full of nice yellow dandelion pollen right now. They're getting as much feed as they can on their own, but it's just a little shortcut to ensure their success by feeding them this sugar. When things are really good, the other hive already has quit using the sugar water because they're good enough harvesters and really aggressive foragers. They're not using the sugar at all. They estimate that it's going to take from 4 to 10 pounds of sugar to get a hive started. That other hive only took 2. This one might take a little more. But they're well on their way. They're gentle. They are already making comb on those open honeycomb frames that I showed you before, and just really happy with the way they're taking off. Those bees that didn't shake out of the box earlier, take the box, set it by the front, and a few of them will walk out, and either bees from the inside or bees from the box will say, hey, this is home. It's a nice secure place. Here's the opening. They set up their nasonos scent things, and it makes them march out of there like a miniature version of the wildebeest migration in Africa. They're walking 3 or 4 abreast out of there and walking right into the hive, gathering around the queen, warming it up. If you start early, there was an early April shipment of packaged bees, and I went to the second one just because it's kind of variable around here. But you probably want to go with the lid almost direct to the top. You don't want to make them warm up more space than they have to. It's been a little more settled here. I went to this method of just an empty brood box to cover this feeder. And the advantage of having your sugar water inside the hive is if it's cloudy or rainy, they don't have to go out and stress themselves to get it. Feeding outside also sets up robbing from other colonies, and that makes your bees susceptible to them maybe going right in and taking what they have inside too. So having the sugar inside is a good deal. There's also a Boardman feeder that sits outside. Some people curse at that or swear at it rather than swear by it because that jar is at outside temperature versus this one is at the beehive temperature, a little bit nicer for the bees. There are other systems. There's a feeder that resembles the frame that holds quite a bit of water. there's ways, you got to watch a little bit that bees don't fall in there and drown. There are screens and places for them to crawl up, but this is really a low impact thing, low cost, something I had from other little farm ventures, works okay. Two or 3 days after you've hived your bees, they call it, go in and make sure that that queen has been liberated. If you've made that, set that screen up right, they would still feed her if she was still in there. If you go in at 3 days and she's not out, go ahead and pop that marshmallow or hard candy or whatever you use and get her out of there. Some of the books will say, well, don't disturb them for a week after you've hived them, but again, I think it's important that she be out of there and they're going about their business.